When I lay on the floor, barely alive from the latest beating at the hands of my abusive husband, my parents were busy helping my cousin Emily pick out a wedding dress, each gown priced at $10,000, all paid for with the money they'd collected when they married me off. When the hospital called to tell them I was bleeding out, their answer was as cold as ice. Daughter? We don't have a daughter. They've always treated Emily like their own flesh and blood, doting on her like she was the perfect child, while I was nothing but an inconvenience, a burden they couldn't wait to get rid of. Reborn into this life, I'm done with them. I don't need their love. I don't need them. And I'm sure as hell not going to be anyone's victim again. Chapter 1. I opened my eyes and found myself back on my 14th birthday, the day it all began. It was the first birthday I didn't get to celebrate properly. Why? Because my parents were too busy worrying about Emily. They thought she might feel sad without them there to celebrate her birthday, so they decided mine didn't really matter. Emily, my cousin, had been living with us ever since her father, my uncle, passed away. Dad always said he owed his success to my uncle, who had helped him out when we were struggling. So when tragedy struck, Dad took her in, determined to give her everything, as if she were his own daughter. And everything she got. Emily never had to ask twice for anything. New clothes, toys, attention, they all went to her first. Me? I got the leftovers. The things she didn't want. It had always been that way. I sat at the edge of the room, a book in my hands, watching as Emily clung to my mom's arm, her voice soft and sweet. Mom, you're too good to me. But, do you think my sister will be upset? My mother patted her head affectionately. Don't be silly. We're all family. Why would she be upset? Besides, we got her a cake too. I glanced at the cake they'd picked out for me, chocolate. My least favorite. But of course, it was Emily's favorite. I sighed and turned back to my book, pretending not to care. Emily's eyes darted to the book in my hands, and she gave a little pout. Wow, sis, you're amazing. I wish I could read French books like you. But I never really studied much French. If I had, maybe we could read together. Before I could respond, my father jumped in, eager to please her. If you want to learn, Emily, I'll sign you up for French classes. Whatever you need. Oh, but those classes are so expensive. Emily trailed off, her voice soft and hesitant. Nonsense. Dad said, waving it off. We can afford it. You and Leal are both our children. Whatever you need, we'll make it happen. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed my book shut and stood up, heading for the stairs without a word. My father's expression darkened as he watched me. What now, Anna? Are you really still upset because we gave that old doll to Emily? I stopped in my tracks, my hands curling into fists. That doll? The one that had been with me since the day I was born? That old doll, I said, my voice shaking with anger, was the only thing that ever kept me company when you two were too busy to care. It was my only friend. That doll had been my constant companion through all the times I was alone. I never let it out of my sight. But once Emily got her hands on it, she tossed it straight into the trash, calling it ugly and broken. And when I protested, my parents scolded me as if I were the one in the wrong. Emily's eyes filled with tears, and she sniffled, putting on her best innocent act. I'm so sorry, sis. I didn't mean to upset you. Please don't be mad at Mom and Dad. They love you so much. If it'll make you happy, I'll leave. For a moment, my father seemed taken aback by my outburst. But as soon as he saw Emily's tears, he snapped back to his usual self, pulling her into a hug and glaring at me. Enough. How can you be so cold-hearted? My mother wrapped her arms around Emily, whispering softly as she comforted her. It's all right, sweetheart. You belong here with us. We're your family. And just as I was about to leave, I caught Emily's eyes, her tear-streaked face hiding a smirk. A look of triumph flashed across her expression, just for a split second, before she buried her face in my mother's shoulder. Chapter 2. I had no interest in their twisted little family dynamic anymore. My focus now was on the high school entrance exams coming up next month. In my last life, Emily had only managed to get into a mediocre public school. This time, I needed to make sure I got into one of the best far away from her and this house. I'd barely started my study session when thunder rumbled outside, rattling the windows. I got up to shut them, noticing the doll I'd just washed sitting on the windowsill. Carefully, I grabbed it and brought it inside. Just as I sat back down, there was a knock at my door. It was Emily, standing there with that fake, timid look she always wore when she wanted something. "Sis, there are bugs in my room. Can I sleep with you tonight?" Her room was on the first floor, while mine, which had been designated as my room from birth, was on the second. I was about to refuse when she suddenly raised her voice loud enough for my parents to hear. "Sis, I'm so sorry. If you're angry, I'll leave Mom and Dad. Just don't be mad." My father rushed in, his usual look of concern plastered all over his face. "But not for me, never for me." "Emily, don't worry. If you're scared, why don't you and Anna switch rooms for the night? She's not afraid of bugs." That was it. I flung open the door, my eyes narrowing at him. "This room has been mine since the day I was born. Why should I give it up for her?" And then I turned to Emily, forcing a tight smile. "Your acting skills are wasted here. You should really audition for something." Emily burst into tears again, looking every bit the helpless victim. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I don't want to take your room, I swear. I'll leave right now." My mother rushed in, wrapping her arms around Emily protectively. "Who said anything about leaving? It's just a doll, Anna. If you want another one, we'll buy you a new one. Why are you always making such a big deal out of nothing?" Just a doll. That doll had been my only comfort through countless thunderstorms, my only companion when I was scared and alone. But Emily was afraid of bugs, so I was supposed to give up my room. And when I was terrified of thunderstorms, all I had was that doll. And then my father, his voice full of authority, said the words that sent a chill down my spine. "Why?" "Because I paid for this house. I'm the one who decides who sleeps where. And if I say you switch rooms, and then you switch rooms. Emily's been through enough already. Can't you be a little more considerate?" I looked at them, my parents, standing there, coddling Emily like she was the one who'd been wronged. Ever since she came into our lives, it was like I didn't exist. My allowance was cut in half to fund her language classes. Every bit of love they had left was given to her. And yet, I was only 2 months older than she was. Was my existence really such a burden to them? Without another word, I grabbed my things and headed downstairs. I wasn't about to sleep in Emily's room, but I wouldn't stay in mine either. Instead, I went to the guest room. Once I'd settled in, I put on my headphones and started listening to the lessons. I wasn't going to waste any more time hoping for love or approval. If I wanted to escape this family, I'd have to do it on my own. And that meant getting better, stronger, and smarter. Chapter 3. I had just stepped into the classroom when I overheard Emily talking quietly to a group of students. Ignoring the curious stares, I walked straight over and tapped her desk. "What are you whispering about?" Her face flushed, but she didn't say a word. My eyes drifted to the necklace around her neck, a familiar necklace. My stomach dropped. "Emily, did you take my necklace?" She stiffened and then straightened up, her voice defensive. "Mom gave it to me." I couldn't help but laugh coldly. That was a lie, and she knew it. The necklace had been a gift from my grandmother when I was little. I'd been sick all the time back then, and she'd given it to me as a charm for good health. Even in her old age, when her memory started to fade, she never forgot about me or that necklace. Without thinking, I reached out and yanked the necklace off her. The boy sitting next to her shot up from his chair, glaring at me. "What's wrong with you, Anna? You treat Emily like a servant, and now you're bullying her." I glanced over at Emily, who was already on the verge of tears, looking as innocent as ever. She was good at this, always playing the part of the fragile, misunderstood girl. "Please, don't be mad, sis," she said softly, her voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "I'll do anything you want. Don't be upset with Mom and Dad, okay?" Before I could respond, the teacher walked in, and the room quieted down. He began reading out the class rankings. "And special recognition goes to Anna, who moved up 12 ranks and is now first in the class. Well done." I could feel the sharp stares of resentment from behind me, but I didn't care. I twirled my pen between my fingers, letting their jealousy wash over me. After school, I walked home, and as soon as I walked through the front door, Dad was waiting for me, his face full of anger. "Do you even have an ounce of decency left? We told you to look after Emily, not bully her." Emily stood behind him, clutching his sleeve, her eyes wide with fake innocence. "It's okay, Dad. Don't be mad at sis. I'm sure she didn't mean to." I suddenly understood everything. It all clicked. "That's why you sent the driver to pick her up every day while I had to walk home, right? So she could get home first and report everything to you?" Mom stepped in, trying to play the peacemaker like always. "Anna, Emily's not as strong as you. I gave her that necklace. We're all family, and we have to live together for a long time. By the way, I heard you did well on your test. But even if you didn't do as well as Emily, that's no excuse to cheat. Just apologize to her, won't you?" I stood there, stunned for a moment. Mom knew exactly what that necklace meant to me, yet she handed it over to Emily without a second thought. And now, the grade I'd worked so hard for. They thought I'd cheated. I couldn't take it anymore. My whole body trembled with anger as I shoved past her and went straight to my room, slamming the door behind me. I could hear my mother muttering from downstairs. "That girl is so difficult." And of course, Emily's soft voice chimed in with her usual act. "Don't be upset, Mom. Sis didn't mean it. She's just emotional." Mom sighed. "If only you were my real daughter." Chapter 4. The results from the high school entrance exams came out, and I had the acceptance letter from one of the best schools in town in my hands. Emily stared at it, her eyes wide with envy. "Wow, sis, you're amazing. I wish I could go to that school too, but my grades just aren't good enough." Dad gave her an encouraging smile and patted her on the shoulder. "Well, it'd be nice for you two to be at the same school. You could watch out for each other." Mom nodded in agreement, always quick to comfort Emily. "Sweetheart, grades aren't everything. You've made so much progress already. If you really want to go to that school, we'll make it happen. We'll pay the tuition." Emily's face lit up. "Really? Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad." This time, things were different. Dad was willing to shell out an extra $10,000 a year just to get Emily into the same prestigious school as me. In my past life, when I told them I wanted to go to that school, all I got was a cold. "What can we do if you don't work hard?" They were great parents, but only to Emily. I sat quietly in the living room as they left the house together, laughing and chatting like they'd forgotten I even existed. Hours later, they returned, and I noticed Emily was wearing a brand new outfit. It was expensive, I could tell from a glance. Meanwhile, the t-shirt I had on was so old it had faded from being washed too many times. I didn't care about their shopping spree. I just calmly told them. "The school sent a letter. Parents are supposed to attend the opening ceremony." Mom hesitated for a moment before responding. "Anna, we'll be going with Emily. You're used to going to these things alone, but she's not. If we don't go, people might laugh at her." In the past, they never attended my school events because they were always too busy. Now, it seemed they had all the time in the world for Emily. I almost wanted to clap for them. "So, I'm the one without parents, is that it?" Mom looked taken aback for a second, and then scolded me. "What are you talking about? Don't be ridiculous." I didn't bother arguing. I turned and walked away, ignoring the sharp words that followed me up the stairs. Let them dote on Emily all they want. If they've chosen her as their only daughter, I hope Emily's ready for the responsibilities that come with it. Chapter 5. My 16th birthday had finally arrived. When I got home, the house was quiet, eerily so. No decorations, no cake, no one waiting to surprise me. I finally gave in and called my mom. She picked up after a few rings, her voice full of apology. "Oh, Anna, I'm so sorry. Emily wasn't feeling well today. Your dad and I are with her at the hospital for drip." Before I could even say anything, I heard Emily's voice in the background calling for Mom. And just like that, the line went silent. A little while later, I saw Emily's post on social media, a family selfie with the caption, "Mom and Dad took me to see the sea today and I came down with a fever." So typical of me. So that's where they were without me. I pulled out the small cake I'd bought earlier, set it on the table, and lit a single candle. After staring at it for a moment, I blew it out, making a silent wish. The cake had gone soggy, and it tasted slightly bitter, but I finished it anyway. I thought they would return the next day like in my last life, but they came back that night. Emily's cheeks were flushed from the fever, but she still had enough energy to come over and smile sweetly at me. "Happy birthday, sis." Then she noticed the cake remnants on the table, and her eyes widened in exaggerated surprise. "Wait a second, sis, don't tell me you've got a boyfriend?" Mom, ever the hawk when it came to anything remotely related to dating, rushed over. Her eyes zeroed in on the cake, and her expression turned icy. "Anna, I don't want you hanging around with any inappropriate people. Understand?" I told her I bought the cake myself, but Emily, ever the innocent, chimed in again. "But sis, didn't you say you didn't have much spending money left? How could you afford this?" That little jab was all it took. Mom's suspicion deepened, and I could tell she didn't believe me. Frustrated, I stood up and headed for the stairs. "Think whatever you want. Emily's always right anyway." That set Dad off. "Emily's been sick all day, and she still worries about you. This is how you act. We're trying to protect you, but you're too stubborn to listen. If you fall in with the wrong crowd, don't expect us to bail you out." I couldn't hold back any longer. "But Dad, you forgot my birthday." I didn't want to care, I wanted to be above it. But the words still stung. Dad's face hardened, and he quickly denied it. "Forgot? Don't be ridiculous. We just took Emily out for a bit. Haven't we celebrated your birthday enough over the years? Besides, we're here now, aren't we?" They must have forgotten how, when my grades weren't good enough, they wouldn't even let me leave the house, let alone take me anywhere. Disappointed, I muttered a half-hearted thanks and went up to my room, shutting the door to the conversation. Chapter 6. While my birthday had been a complete disaster, Emily's was a full-blown celebration. She wanted to throw a party with her classmates, so my parents rented out a whole villa. They weren't even going to invite me until Emily made a big show of suggesting we celebrate together, to make up for my missed birthday. My parents reluctantly agreed, though it was obvious they weren't thrilled about it. I knew Emily had something up her sleeve, but I wasn't prepared for just how bold she'd be. At the party, she found me in a quiet moment, pulled me aside, and with a smug smile, said, "So what if you're their real daughter? They love me more, and you know it." She leaned in closer and added, her voice dripping with smug satisfaction, "Thanks for everything, sis. Taking what belongs to others feels pretty good, doesn't it? They treat me better than my own parents ever did." I forced a smile and nodded. "You're right. It's all yours. Feel better now?" She didn't seem bothered by my calm reaction. If anything, it made her more confident. "You think I went through all this trouble just to throw a few insults at you?" Before I could respond, she suddenly grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the pool. Just as we reached the edge, she let go, making it look like I'd shoved her in. The next thing I knew, my parents were rushing over in a panic. Mom, who couldn't swim, was about to jump in after her, but Dad held her back and dove in himself. The first thing Dad did after pulling Emily out wasn't to check if she was okay. No, his first instinct was to slap me across the face so hard my ears rang. Enough! How could I have raised a daughter like you? What did Emily ever do to deserve this? Do you want to be a murderer? I spat out blood, my mouth throbbing. I couldn't hear much, but judging by the look on Dad's face, I knew whatever he was saying wasn't good. Emily, still dripping wet, smiled faintly while gasping for breath. Dad! It wasn't Sis's fault, it was an accident. She didn't mean to. Around us, Emily's classmates stared, whispering behind their hands, judging me. I stood there, feeling like the world had turned against me. Something inside me snapped. Before anyone could react, I grabbed Emily's head and shoved it back into the pool. She flailed, choking on water, her struggles growing weaker by the second. Mom screamed. Anna! Let her go! Stop it! Dad lunged to pull me off, but I met his eyes, smiled coldly, and let go on my own. Emily shot up, gasping for air like she'd just escaped from hell. I laughed. Since you've already branded me the villain, I figured I might as well play the part. Tell me, who's your real daughter? Why do I always have to sacrifice for Emily just because she doesn't have parents? Do you know how many people think I'm the one who's been abandoned? There were so many things they could have easily found out, but they chose to believe whatever Emily fed them. Dad, his face flushed with rage, could barely breathe. Get out! I don't want to see you again. And Mom? She gave me a quick glance, a flicker of guilt in her eyes. But it vanished the moment Emily clutched her chest, pretending to feel faint. Mom, I don't feel so good. And just like that, Mom's attention was back on Emily. Like always. Chapter 7. After that, my parents cut off my allowance. I had no choice but to balance school with a part-time job. One day, Emily looked at me with a smirk. You're still here? I thought for sure this would send you packing. I didn't even glance up from my textbook. I guess you really don't understand what it means to be family, do you? Her smile widened like she found my indifference entertaining. Oh, by the way, Mom felt so guilty about everything, she bought me a piano. It was supposed to be your gift for your 18th birthday, but, well, I guess it's mine now. I was done with her games. Without a word, I shoved her out of my room and slammed the door. Later, when I came downstairs for dinner, Emily was sitting at the table, her eyes red, looking every bit the perfect little victim. The moment she saw me, she put on her usual act, her voice soft and timid. Sis, don't be mad, okay? I bought you this dress with my scholarship money. I heard you've got a performance coming up, and I thought, well, this would look beautiful on you. She handed me the dress. It was fancy, expensive looking. And of course, she had one exactly like it for herself. In the past, I'd been naive enough to fall for this. I thought she genuinely wanted to make amends. I even accepted the dress, thinking maybe, just maybe, we could start over. But on the day of the performance, when she stood next to me in the same dress, I realized how foolish I'd been. Emily's skin was flawless, and her face was glowing from all the skincare products she had used. Meanwhile, I had acne from staying up late studying. I was the ugly duckling. And she made sure everyone saw it. This time, I didn't hesitate. No thanks. You can wear it yourself. At that, my dad slammed his fork down on the table, glaring at me. Emily went out of her way to do something nice for you, and this is how you repay her. What did I even do? I shot back. I just said I didn't want the dress. Mom jumped in, her voice sharp. If you don't want it, fine. But don't expect us to buy you a dress for your performance. And of course, Dad couldn't resist adding. You always say we favor Emily, but look at her. The moment she got her scholarship, she used the money to buy us gifts. She's been so much more considerate than you ever were. For a second, I almost laughed. Dad, that Cartier watch you're wearing? I bought that. And Mom, the gold necklace around your neck? Yeah, that was from me too. But now, Emily spends a little of her scholarship money on you, and suddenly, she's the perfect daughter. I remembered how hard I'd worked to save up enough for those gifts. I skipped meals, went hungry, and even ended up in the hospital from low blood sugar. But when I gave them those gifts, my parents cried, telling me I didn't need to sacrifice so much for them that it broke their hearts to see me do that. Funny how that concern had vanished. They stood there now, wearing the gifts I bought, telling me it was only natural they favored Emily. After all they said, everything I had came from them. I held my head high, refusing to let the tears fall. I had come back to this life to ask why. Why did they treat me like this? Why were people so quick to betray their own blood? But in the end, did the answers even matter? Both of my parents fell silent. Sensing the tension, Emily stepped into the spotlight, her voice trembling. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you, but I set aside a little bit of my scholarship money. I wanted to donate to a charity in memory of my biological dad. It felt important to honor him that way. But you've both been so kind to me, I should have used it all on you. At the mention of her real father, my dad's expression softened. He looked at her with such tenderness, like she was the most precious thing in the world. Oh, sweetheart. You're such a good girl. Don't worry about it. We understand. Mom, too, looked at her with that same pitying gaze as if Emily were some fragile little bird they needed to protect. Then my mom turned to me, her voice sharp and cold. Anna, how could you bring up Emily's sad past? Don't you see how much Emily cares about us? She's such a thoughtful, dutiful child. You owe her an apology. An apology? They wanted me to apologize to the girl who had taken everything from me, the girl who had wormed her way into my family and never looked back. I glanced at Emily, sitting there in the center of it all, basking in their attention and love. Taking a deep breath, I stood up and headed back to my room without a word. Let them have their little drama. I had more important things to focus on. My family might betray me, but my grades never would. Chapter 8. Soon, the college entrance exam results were out. I scored 710, ranking 10th in the province. Prestigious universities sent me invitations. My parents, seeing my success, smiled at me and threw grand celebrations, earning admiration. Emily, having only gotten into a second-tier university, was neglected. This path was one I carved myself, different from my previous life. Holding my acceptance letter from Peking University, I couldn't help but cry. At the celebration, my father was drinking with a business partner. The partner praised me, saying, "Biological children are different. She's as smart as you." My father, drunk, laughed. "She's made me proud, a real surprise." I sipped my tea, noticing Emily clenching her clothes. My phone beeped. Emily texted, "You can't take them from me." I replied, "Mom and Dad never liked you. They only care about appearances." Just as they took Emily in for appearances, they wouldn't neglect me now. 5 minutes later, my mother whispered something to my father, who hurriedly apologized and left. I knew Emily would use such tactics to steal their attention, but I wasn't worried. I smiled and poured drinks for the guests, handling the event smoothly. A reporter took a photo of me, which went viral. At first, people praised my achievements, but then questions arose. Why was she alone? Where were her parents? When they learned my parents attended Emily's events but not mine, the outrage grew. People online condemned my parents and Emily. My parents subtly asked me to clarify, but I didn't. Finally, Emily, unable to bear the criticism, confronted me. "Did you do this? Did you hire people to attack us? What does this have to do with me?" I closed my laptop, which was playing an IELTS lesson, and added, "These are all things you did." Emily's face darkened. The next day, the narrative changed. Shocking! Top student who scored 710 in the college entrance exam bullies her sister. Marketing accounts used this headline, and it quickly became a trending topic. This time, I contacted a reporter for an interview. Chapter 9. My parents thought I was going to clear Emily's name. They praised me, saying, "Anna, you've finally grown up. There's no grudge that can't be resolved in a family. Just talk it out." My father reminded me, "You can't clear your name, so focus on helping Emily." I agreed repeatedly. But at the press conference, I released a surveillance video. It showed Emily verbally abusing me and deliberately jumping into the lake to frame me. In my previous life, similar incidents happened. How could I not be prepared this time? I had installed a hidden camera by the lake at the villa. In the video, Emily's mocking words were clear. The reporters, like wolves smelling blood, kept taking pictures. "Stop! Stop filming!" Emily's face was pale, but she couldn't stop them. Most of the reporters were people Emily had invited to ruin my reputation, but now they were her downfall. My parents' faces turned ashen. They couldn't believe the Emily they had doted on was like this. My mother, still in disbelief, asked, "Emily, is this true?" Emily bit her lip, trembling. When my mother questioned her, she broke down. I don't know." Seeing her reaction, my mother realized the truth. She was too shocked to speak. My father didn't even look at Emily. He stared at me, sighing. Blood is thicker than water. After this incident, Emily's reputation was ruined. In my previous life, her second-tier university seemed acceptable compared to me. But now, with me going to Peking University, the contrast was stark. My father reduced her allowance, and even the things she had received were replaced with better ones for me. I looked at the violin, clearly better than Emily's, and smirked, listing it on a second-hand platform. I never wanted belated gifts. Chapter 10. While I was at university, my mother frequently asked if I had enough money. My father increased my monthly allowance to 5,000 yuans and gave me red envelopes during holidays. During summer vacation, my mother often asked if I wanted to come home, but I always used my research group as an excuse to refuse. Unlike me, Emily's allowance was reduced to 1,500 yuans a month, far below her spending habits. I heard she maxed out her credit cards 3 times and started dating an older man for money, accumulating 200,000 yuans in debt. When I learned this, my father was already hospitalized from the stress. When I arrived at the hospital, Emily was arguing with my father. "Isn't it your fault? Did I make you neglect Anna? Did I force you to spoil me? Did I make you do all this? Now you realize Anna's worth, but it's too late. I owe so much because you didn't give me money. Without money, I had to get it elsewhere. If you won't give it to me, don't blame me." As I entered the room, Emily bumped into my shoulder. She looked at me with hatred. "Why is everything about you better? Better grades, better skills, better background. Anna, you're disgusting." I calmly reminded her. "You had these things once." But she wanted to take my parents, and after gaining their love, she squandered it, wanting to be a parasite. My father lay on the bed, looking haggard. He croaked. "You finally came back." I didn't exchange pleasantries. "What are you going to do about Emily?" My mother disapproved. "Don't upset your father." Before my father could answer, the doctor rushed in, delivering bad news. "Your condition is severe. Prepare for a kidney transplant." My mother was stunned. "Doctor, what's wrong with him?" The doctor looked puzzled. "Didn't that girl tell you? He has kidney failure and needs a transplant." My mother was devastated, collapsing to the floor. The doctor added, "Finding a donor is difficult. If a family member matches, there's a better chance." Chapter 11. I saw the doctor out. The room fell silent. In my previous life, I volunteered to donate a kidney to my father. After he recovered, I struggled with daily life due to the missing kidney. But they didn't care. They married me off to an abusive man, using the dowry to buy Emily a wedding dress. Emily married the man she loved, while I lived in darkness. Even the last call from the hospital was met with indifference. In this life, I wouldn't volunteer. My mother, trembling, asked, Anna, can you? I interrupted her. Let Emily try first. My mother hesitated. But Emily ran away. She won't come back. She needs money. And donating a kidney affects her health. How can we afford her treatment? I heard Emily was with the man she liked in my previous life. But her life wasn't as good this time, and that man was greedy. Without money, he wouldn't want her. My father nodded. Anna is right. We can't lose another person. That afternoon, my father called Emily back. She was wary. 50,000 for a match? You're not lying? My father pushed the contract forward. If you match, you donate. Emily confidently smiled. No problem. She was sure she wouldn't match. A few days later, the results came back negative. Emily sighed in relief and held out her hand. What? Money. You promised. My mother cried silently. My father gave her the money. Emily hummed a tune as she passed me, mocking. Now you'll lose your father too. I smiled, closing the door. I pulled out another report. Sorry, but you won't get your wish. Chapter 12. My father's eyes lit up at my words. He looked at the report, showing a successful match. Emily, being his brother's daughter, had a chance of matching. My father, filled with hope, exclaimed, There's hope. Emily's face turned pale. You? She was confident because she had given false data. But I had paid the man she liked to beat her, obtaining her blood for a new match. With a friend in the lab, the results came quickly. I smiled. I thought you'd never figure it out. Despite her reluctance, my father forced Emily to stay. To make her willingly donate, my father promised her 1,000,000 yuan. Hearing the money, Emily's resistance weakened. Eventually, she agreed. The transplant was successful and my father recovered quickly. But Emily, used to a lavish lifestyle, deteriorated. Even with the money, she couldn't smile for long. Her boyfriend, Lee, entered the hospital room, dressed in an ill-fitting suit, nodding to me. Miss, I'll take her. I stepped back, saying nothing. Emily screamed. What are you doing, Lee? Later, I heard Emily was sold to a family. When the police found her, she was paralyzed, lying in a bed full of maggots, laughing. It's all mine. Anna, you deserved to die. Even dying, you called Dad. A friend, disgusted, asked, What did you do to deserve this? I gripped my glass pail and nodded. The friend, thinking I was scared, comforted me. It's okay. She's lying. But I knew it was true. It was my past life. And I had changed my future. Chapter 13. My father's health improved. He played cards with the old men downstairs. One day while chatting, he praised me. Anna is smart like me. Emily is my uncle's child, not mine. Before he could say more, sirens blared and he was handcuffed. My father, panicking, asked, What did I do? The police listed his charges. You're under arrest for organ trafficking. I stood at the door watching. My father, seeing me, pleaded, Anna, help me. I did nothing wrong. I stepped back, innocent. Dad, you did. You did all this. Emily was foolish, not knowing the contract was void. My father was foolish, not knowing he broke the law. Knowledge is the most valuable asset. He realized the truth, eyes wide. You did this? I didn't deny it. This is my final gift to you. He deserved legal punishment. After his imprisonment, Emily died from multiple organ failure. My mother, looking at me with a complex expression, asked, Is this what you wanted? I placed my books on the table, arranging them neatly. Not enough. Soon, Lee was arrested for human trafficking. A family shares the same fate. My mother cooked for me for a few days before leaving silently. I saw her again at a temple, her head shaved. She no longer called me Anna, but benefactor. Chapter 14. As a child, though my parents were often busy, little Anna loved to cook for the family and call them. If they came home, Anna would put her doll in her room. If they didn't, she would place the doll in her mother's seat, telling it about her day. One day, she couldn't hold back her tears. Remembering no one was home, she cried loudly. A gentle hand stroked her head, hugging her trembling body, soothing. "Don't cry, Anna. Be good." That was her most precious memory.